Hello everyone and welcome to Year 9 Season 3 Operation Twin Shells of Rainbow Six Siege. Now, thanks to Ubisoft, I have played this season early and I am going to be completely honest when I say this might be one of my favorite operators ever added to Rainbow Six Siege, and I'll explain why. Now, I'm going to cover a bunch of stuff in this video, so I'll have them all chaptered and timestamped, but let's start off with the brand new Defender Skopos. Now, Skopos is her operator name, but her real name is Kure Galanos. And if you've played Rainbow Six Rogue Spear or Raven Shield, this may sound like a familiar name. Yes, Kure is an ex-Rainbow operative who appeared in Ubisoft's older titles, and she is making her way back into Team Rainbow. And she will be joining the Wolfguard squad led by Captain Dokk. Now, when you load up the game and see Kure, something's gonna be quite obvious. She is in a wheelchair. Well, do you remember that mission in which Daniel Bolgar and Gerald Morris went on in 2012? Well, it turns out Daniel wasn't the only one who Deimos tried to eliminate that day. Kure was actually also on that mission when Gerald, who would become Deimos, would blow up that facility after killing Daniel. This would result in severe injuries for Kure, however, she would survive. It seemed like her time on the field was over as she was now restricted to a wheelchair. Although, this wasn't going to stop Kure. We'll get more into this in the lore video I will make, which will be separate. However, when we fast forward to modern day Rainbow Six lore, Kure has a new way to operate in the battlefield. Meet Colossus and Talos, two robots who are fully controllable by Kure and are physically sent onto the field while she remains back at her control base controlling them. So when we choose Skopos as the operator, us as the player are playing as Kure, who herself is then controlling these two shells. And I'm being serious when I say this is one of my favorite operators ever. So when you spawn into the match, both of these shells will be deployed. And I know you see that brand new weapon, we'll talk about it in a minute. But yes, you will be playable as one of them, and the other one will be deployed beside you in the idle state. Now, when one of the shells is in the idle state, they deploy a massive deployable shield which even covers their side. This has a window on it which can be used by you in the active shell or one of your teammates as a deployable shield, even being able to be deployed inside of doorways. And it has similar properties to deployable shields, with explosions destroying them, as well as being able to shatter the glass if punched. But not only will the idle shell serve as a deployable shield, it also becomes a bulletproof camera for your team to use. A pretty cool gadget to have, but here's the cool thing. When playing as the active shell, you have the ability to switch to the other robot and start playing as that. Which, yes, means that you are technically playing as two operators in one. Now, there's no limit to how many times you can switch between the two shells. There only really is one restriction, and that is you have to make sure that the one you're currently playing as has enough room to deploy the shield when it goes into the idle state for you to be allowed to switch. If you don't have enough room, you won't be able to initiate a switch. However, they've made it super simple for us to understand when we can and can't do it, because the UI at the left will turn red when you are in a position where you won't be able to deploy that inactive idle shell shield. You might not see it in a few of these clips because I have an ultra wide monitor and crop it for the video. However, it's always there. And I just want to quickly make a note about this HUD as well. It is very in depth, so it will show when you or the other one is being affected by an EMP, if the shield is destroyed, how much HP it has. There is a lot of work that has went into this HUD, so be sure to use it when you play as Skopos. But other than that, you're good to go. Just press your operator ability, it will take you to the camera view of your other robot. Once you see that it is clear, press the switch ability, you'll then become the other shell, and as you can see, the one you were just playing as will then become idle like the other one. It's like having two operators at once, but only one being playable at the time. But the one you're not playing as is also still useful as a shield and as a camera. Now, let me make something very clear. This doesn't mean that you have two lives. This doesn't turn the game into a 6v5. If you die as the active shell, Kure gets cut off from the connection and you're eliminated. You don't then switch to the other one. If you're playing as the shell, you're dead. Now, the other one will still be useful. It will still have the shield, it will still have the camera, but you can't transform into it. If the main active one dies, you're cut off from the round. You can't play anymore. However, if the inactive idle shell dies, you're still fine to play. The one you're physically controlling isn't dead yet. However, you obviously won't be able to switch anymore because that one is destroyed, and you also won't have that camera or shield to use. But you, as the physical shell, is still in operation, and you can still fight like any other operator. And if you, as the attacker, do kill the inactive shell, it does count as a kill, even though the operational one is still alive. Now, although you aren't getting 2 lives, you can still sort of cheat death sometimes. If you're in a situation as one of the shells, let's say you're having a gunfight with an attacker and they put you to 1 HP. If you have enough time to quickly switch to the other one, you can sort of save yourself. If that's at the other side of the map, you switch to it, it has a completely different HP. So they don't share health. If one of them's on 1 HP and the other one's on full, they don't affect each other. It's the same with the ammo as well. Regardless of what you've done with the other one's weapon, whether you've used all the ammo, you need to reload, it doesn't matter. They're 2 separate entities, they have their own guns. Only thing this doesn't apply to is the secondary gadget. You don't get 4 impacts, for example, which I think is fair enough. So you can use it strategically if you are playing a bit aggressive to fall back and then switch to the other one. But you have to be quick, because remember, if you die as the active one, that's you out of the round. Now, of course, all of the strategies you can do with this is absolutely insane. You can keep one in sight, you can play off of sight and then come back to sight in the final moments of the round if they haven't destroyed it. You can hide one of them in the basement, for example, play as an anchor in sight, then when they are starting to apply pressure onto sight, switch to the other one and go for a late round flank. This is why I'm saying that I genuinely believe this is one of my favorite operators they've ever added. The amount of stuff you can do is so insane, and even the ones which are inactive are still bringing a camera and a shield. It's amazing. Now, let's talk about a few things about the robots as well, because obviously they are robots. They are not living things. So Dokk cannot stim them. There's actually quite a few funny voice lines which happen when Dokk does try and stim them. Kure comes on the microphone and she's like, stop trying to stim my shells. Because remember, it's still Kure you are playing as. But yeah, they can't be stimmed by Dokk. Obviously, Thunderbird doesn't work as well. Because they don't breathe air, they can walk through smoke's toxic gas, meaning that you can do some strategies. If smoke smokes off a corner, one of the shells can walk through it and swing the enemy, meaning that Smoke and Skopos are the 2 operators who can breathe the gas in the game. The same thing will happen if there is a dread mine which is active. Of course, if someone activates Fenrir's dread mine, it also affects teammates who are in the area. As well as this, there's also situations where it will be hacked by Brava. However, in none of these situations will the shells be affected by the dread mines. Now, they walk around like any other operator. They are 2 armor, 2 speed. They're not any faster. They do audibly sound different when they walk around because they are robots. They don't have a special melee like Aruni does, for example. They still 3-hit barricades like any other operator. When you shoot at them, instead of it making a sort of sponging noise, it makes a mechanical noise because obviously you're shooting metal. And a really cool detail is when you are switching between them, you can actually see Kure's face. For the most part, other than being immune to Smoke and Fenrir, when you're playing as the active one, they pretty much just act like any other operator. There are a few counters. I know people are going to be thinking of Thatcher. The EMP will disable the idle one, so the one sitting with the shield, it will get EMP'd, meaning that you can't switch to it, and you also can't access the camera for that time being. However, the active one you are playing as has a defense system active, meaning that the EMP will not completely shut it down. It can still operate, but it simply cannot access cameras during the EMP process. So yes, EMPing either the inactive one or the active one will stop a change between them, but it won't completely shut off that player from using them and shooting back with their gun. You're not going to take them down that easy. Brava can hack the inactive one, and no, you won't take control of it and be able to fight back like actually playing as the robot. It will start a detonation process to override it and blow it up. And when you're playing as the active shell, you will get a warning that your other one has been hacked and will explode. However, you can override this and stop it by switching to that other one. So although Skopos has the ability to stop the hack and override the explosion process, this can also be used by the attacking team to somewhat bait that enemy into switching to this other shell, because you could have someone hiding behind it, for example, who's waiting for it to then become active, who will then kill the active player, completely eliminating them. There's a lot of baiting you can do with this, so Brava is a great way to get rid of the inactive one, because you're either going to destroy it or you're going to force them into playing that one. But that's kind of really it, because stuff like Twitch, for example, you have to remember that inactive robot is still a player, so you're just going to Twitch drone them like any other player. It isn't going to destroy it. Explosives are a counter to the inactive one as well, because you can destroy its shield, and the shield can be destroyed without it necessarily killing that shell, so you can still have a playable shell without the shield, but when that one goes inactive, it's not going to have any protection. It will just sit in the corner without a shield active. As well as this, the inactive one will also show up on IQ's scanner, so you could maybe find a way to sort of find the inactive one. Maybe they've tried to hide it, place a few claymores in front of it, shatter the glass so they can't see, and then if they try and go for a switch, they're going to instantly go on that one and get blown up by a claymore. As well as this, Dokkaebi can still call it, stop it from accessing the cameras, but it will also disrupt its feed, which isn't something it does to other operators, so pretty cool effect. This operator has a lot of depth to it, but when you play it, it's honestly not that confusing. You'll understand how it all works pretty quickly, and they're just an absolute blast. I absolutely love this. Oh, and also fire does still affect them. No! No! Oh no! Nice. It didn't go over the shield. Now, the last thing I want to cover in this section is the interaction with Jackal and Deimos. I wouldn't really say this is a counter, because that's just them doing their jobs, but if anything, this is actually a benefit to Skopos against Deimos and Jackal. And very simply, the two shells are treated as two different operators. They have their own set of footprints. If Jackal tracks one of them, it won't track the other one, so if he's tracking you, you can just switch to the other one and you won't be tracked. You're inactive one will still being tracked, and it will still be on his feed and the attacker's feed. But as far as you are aware, as the alive active robot, you're not being tracked, your other one is. Same case with Deimos. They're actually really good at countering Deimos, because if he starts to scan you, it will only scan the one which you're playing at that time. So if you then switch to the other one, you're no longer being tracked by Deimos. I was kind of expecting them just to make the scan continue onto the one you changed into, but they're both treated as two separate operators. If one of them is being scanned, the other will not, so use that to your advantage, and heck, you could probably even bait a Deimos or Jackal into going to the inactive one, and you kill them as the active one. Right, so I know you've seen it a lot already throughout these clips, but there is a brand new weapon in the loadout for Skopos, which we'll talk about in full. They are a 2 armor 2 speed, so both of the shells are the same stats. They have the exact same loadout. The loadout is quite minimal. You don't have an option between primary and secondary weapons. You are limited to one for both of them, which is fine. They're both great. The secondary weapon is the pistol which Hibana and Echo have, and of course the primary weapon is the PCX-33, the new assault rifle. I think this is a great gun. If I were to compare it to anything on defense, I'd say it feels pretty similar to Vigil's K1A. It has near to no recoil, and I think that's a massive plus side of the weapon. It doesn't have crazy damage, it doesn't have crazy fire rate, it's just an all-round balanced great weapon. I don't think anyone's going to pick this up and be like, oh, this is bad. I think you're all going to really enjoy this weapon. And when it comes to the secondary gadgets, you have the impact nades and the proxy alarms. A lot of the clips I played in, I used the impact nades, although I wish I used the proxy alarms more, because the proxy alarms can actually be really great if you're going to go for a flank. Let's say you hide one of the robots downstairs, you place a proxy alarm on the way up the stairs, and you're playing at the top. Once you hear that proxy alarm go, as you're playing at the top of the stairs, maybe shoot a few bullets to sort of scare the enemy, then switch to the robot downstairs and go for a flank. But yeah, and absolutely solid loadout in my opinion. Although there is very limited options, I think it's fine. I don't even think they need anything changed about it. It's a great pistol, it's a great brand new AR. You don't really need anything more. Right, let's talk about some other stuff in this season. There is a change to mainly 3 operators, being Solis, Dokkaebi, and Nokk. I will say, all of them not really as big and substantial as I think we were all expecting them to be, but they're not necessarily bad either. Let's start with the one for Nokk, because I know a lot of people are excited for this one. I don't think it's as big as a lot of you were expecting. It's actually really good in gameplay, and even though this may not be Nook's final form yet, I still think this is definitely another major good step in the right direction. But what this change is that her gadget will only deplete usage when you're glitching. So let me try and explain that in a simpler way. Current version of Nokk in the game, which we've known for a while, is when you use her gadget, she goes invisible to cameras, and she can only do this for a certain period of time until her gadget runs out and has to wait for it to recharge. If you do actions such as sprinting, shooting, vaulting, climbing, you appear as a glitch on the camera, which people who are operating it may be able to work out where you are because of it. Well, with this change, your gadget only starts to deplete when you're glitching. So if you're playing Nokk stealthy, your gadget won't deplete. So technically, you'll permanently be hidden from that camera as long as you're playing stealthy. You can activate the gadget the moment you spawn, and as long as you don't shoot anything or sprint, your gadget will not use any juice, and you'll basically be permanently hidden from cameras. Now, of course, that isn't always the case. You do need to punch barricades, you may get into a gunfight. And as I've already established, that stuff will make you glitch. But from your player's perspective, obviously that doesn't change anything, it just affects how you look on cameras. But your gadget will then start to deplete when doing actions such as this. However, the moment you stop, it will stop going down again, and you'll be able to continue your continuous use of being invisible to cameras. And you can always charge this up again anyway by unactivating your gadget. But honestly, this is actually a really great change to Nokk, because that means the majority of the round, she is going to be invisible to cameras. Even though she will be shooting or vaulting or punching barricades, they don't really take that much off of the bar to begin with, and even if you need to reload it, just go stand in the corner for a minute, unactivate your gadget, let it reload, and go for it again. But I really like this because it allows Nook's gadget to shine, because even with Skopos on the defending team now, as long as you're not doing anything that will result in a glitch effect, for example, you can just sit in front of Skopos's inactive shell for as long as you want. They will not see anything, and the moment Skopos changes to that other shell, boom, you've just gotten a free kill because they couldn't see you on the camera when you were actually right in front of them. So yes, this rewards you for being stealthy, and it's going to allow Nokk to bypass a bunch of cameras like she could never do before. It may not be the flashiest update for Nokk, but believe me when I say this is an incredible update for her, and you're gonna see, or should I say not see, a lot more Nooks bypassing your camera and taking you out. So yeah, definitely the best update Nokk has ever gotten, and I feel like she is in a great spot. They can still tweak her a bit more potentially, but this is definitely amazing when it comes to the intel denial and the hiding from cameras. Oh, and also the FMG now has less recoil, but honestly, to me personally, it kind of feels the exact same. Right, next up we have the one for Dokkaebi. This one is pretty simple. She just doesn't have her 2 calls at the start anymore. They have to build up over the round with a maximum of 2. You don't really have to do anything for it. You just have to wait for the duration, which I believe is 45 seconds. Not concrete on that. But yeah, it just means you can't do like 2 back-to-back calls unless you wait till later in the round to do it. And it's just going to force you to stay alive longer and space them out a bit. I honestly don't know how much of an effect this is going to have, but I guess this is a lot better than them like potentially butchering the operator. So even if they maybe decide to, you know, downplay her a bit more in the future, this is a fine start, and we'll just have to see where it goes. And finally we have Solis, and I'm not sure how I feel about this one. So basically she can still use like her scan, but it won't show you what gadget you're looking at unless you hold the activation key, which then does a new thing called an overclock. This is the same button that used to scan the gadgets and like ping them for your teammates. Now it does an overclock and will show her the gadget she is looking at. And it is during this overclock which she can then see what the specific gadgets are. And it's not like she's totally useless. I mean, even in one of the clips, I actually managed to see an IQ, and I believe I got a kill from it. So, you know, she can still do Solis things. But although I don't know if she's still in a great state right now, they did say that this puts her in a better position for balancing, because with her gadget now operating like this, they can now start looking at other methods to then bring her back up again. I definitely think she should get her impact nades back, and although they did increase the duration of her scanner, as far as I'm aware, I think it needs a bit more. But yeah, I don't really think it's necessarily a bad change. I just think we have to see where it can go after this, using this as a launch pad to balance her around this sort of new version of her. So I definitely think this is a good thing that they've done. I just don't think we've seen, I guess, the final stage in which that can happen with this. So I definitely think more Solis changes should come, but I definitely agree when they say from a balancing standpoint, this is much better, and it allows them to tweak her a bit better and put her in that right spot. And I also almost forgot to mention, you'll now know when you've been spotted by Solis. So if you're on your phone, for example, and Solis scans you, you'll have a little "you've been spotted by Solis" icon appear on your screen. So keep that in mind. You will know, or the enemy will know, when you scan them. So overall, the changes for these three operators are pretty good. I think the Nokk one is the best, and I definitely think that benefits the operator and their original vision of her much better. And honestly, wouldn't mind seeing a similar version of this come to Vigil. Drones have had an update where there is now a speed boost option on them, meaning that when you press the sprint button, your drone will speed up, and it does have a duration bar of 3 separate times. However, it works similar to like a Maverick torch, where if you don't finish the entire one, you can still use it in different increments. It's just until that bar is finished, it then moves on to the next bar. You don't have to use an entire duration bar at once. You can spread it out, and there is 3 different duration bars until you're completely out. Picking them up doesn't reset it. This also works on special drones as well. I find it especially useful on Brava. It even works on yokai drones as well as Twitch drones. It doesn't work on Flores. But when Mozzie also hacks a camera, he can take full utility of this as well and use the speed boost on the drones to his advantage. Drones definitely feel like they have a bit more depth this season, and they definitely feel a lot more polished. I think this is a great change. A little minor change here, but I always love when they do it. 2 operators now have an updated menu animation. I hope they continue doing this to a bunch of operators, but Twitch and Bandit now have a brand new menu animation. Looks cool, represents the operator and their gadget very well. Keep doing this, Ubisoft. These are cool. Siege Cup has been added in the beta stage, now currently only on the PC platform. It will be coming to console most likely in Year 9 Season 4 with the full release of it. However, since this is new, they want to put it in beta first, and because it's on PC, that means they can update it a lot quicker, because updates on console have to go through Sony and Microsoft, so you can't get updates out as fast. So with a brand new mode, it's best trial running it on PC first. This will be an in-game weekly tournament, and you don't win R6 credits, at least yet you don't. They're actually introducing a new thing, which are like competitive coins. I can't remember the exact name they gave for them, but these will be like an exclusive currency which you get from Ranked and Siege Cup, and you can use it to buy some exclusive packs, which is really fun. And so that means there's going to be some exclusive cosmetics you can only get for playing the competitive modes, which I know a lot of us are going to be excited about. And I know a lot of people are worried about like cheating in this mode. They did say there is going to be a new anti-cheat method implemented before this goes live, so we're going to have to wait and see what they do, but they did make an emphasis that they are putting a lot of effort into the anti-cheat, and yeah, we're just going to have to see how it goes. I can't really speak more on that, but Ubisoft seem like they are putting in the resources which we have been begging them to do. You can now access the shooting range when searching for a game, whether that's quick match, rank, doesn't matter. It happens across all playlists. When you click the Q button, there will be an option at the bottom of the screen to go to the shooting range, and the Q will then move to the top left of the screen, showing you how much is in the timer, and you can play the shooting range like normal. Very good change, and much better than just looking at the blank loading screen. As well as this, there is now preset 1v1 playlist in the custom game mode, so you and a friend can just jump straight into that. They have 2 versions, one which is shorter and one which is a bit longer. I didn't really get a chance to test much of this either, but from what I did see and try, it is very standard 1v1. It just saves you setting up a game, and I think for a lot of people this is going to be great. You can only have one person on each team, obviously, but you can also have a bunch of people in the spectator slot, so if you want people to maybe wait and do, can do like a best of 5 with a bunch of other people. You can sort of sub them in after the match is over. There is a new updated post-action screen which better shows what happened in that round, a new display of the operators on your team, as well as bundling all the stuff on the same screen, such as battle pass progression, the rank you just went up, renown. Be sure to let me know your thoughts about the new post-action screen. The shooting range now has a new lane where there are cover, so it's just a way to sort of have a more realistic replication of a real match with walls and half walls, so they kind of duck and lean between them. Just another thing added to the shooting range, and of course you can do this whilst queuing like I previously mentioned, so just more depth to the shooting range. And as well as this, there is also a brand new elite skin for Jager, where he is out in space and everything, and if I'm not wrong, that should actually be available now at the time that this video is released. There are now AI attackers in the AI training playlist, which means you can now train as a defender against AI attackers. Skopos is even playable in this, meaning that you can train directly against 5 AI attackers as the new defender. You don't have to start fighting people in the lobby to be the first one on the operator if you want to give her a try. I find it pretty good. This AI playlist is becoming more enjoyable for me as they add more maps and operators every season. The only complaint I will have is with the introduction of the attackers now, instead of it just purely being like, oh, I'm an attacker playing against defenders, they're now mixed in together. I would kind of like it if there was 2 separate options as playing as a defender or playing as an attacker, rather than it being both of them with a round rotation after like 2 rounds. At least maybe just a little option for when you're doing it solo that yes, I only want to play as an attacker or I only want to play as a defender, because when I wanted to play as a defender to play as Skopos in this, I found myself just eliminating myself when I was on the attacking team just to get to the defending team faster. Yeah, I would just kind of like it if you could have both of them as an option rather than being mixed in together, but the AI are great and I think this is becoming an even better mode as every season goes on. And as far as I'm aware, that is every major thing coming to Rainbow Six Siege in Operation Twin Shells. Personally, I absolutely love this season. I am hopeful that the anti-cheat methods, which they did talk about, will be successful because they have seemed very passionate about it. And they do seem like they are trying to learn something from New Blood, as they did apologize and say it wasn't up to Siege standard and they heard our concerns. Skopos is probably one of my favorite operators ever added to the game. I cannot wait to see her go to live build, and of course stay tuned for the lore video. I will have that made. But yeah, be sure to drop a like on this video if you did enjoy. Subscribe if you're new. I shall catch you later. I love you all. Stay safe. Peace.